You're standing at the edge of a clearing you really should not be in. On your left, a silverback gorilla, 180 kilos of muscle, that shares 98% of your DNA and could fold you like a deck chair. On your right, a grizzly bear, up to 400 kilos of teeth and bad attitude that has, on record, kept charging after being shot. They've just noticed each other, and the oldest argument on the internet is about to get settled right in front of you, if you don't get flattened first. So who actually wins? Not who you want to win, who wins? By the end of this, you'll know, and I promise you it's not the answer the comments section keeps screaming. Welcome to the arena. I'm your naturalist, and today we're settling the heavyweight grudge match of the animal kingdom the way it deserves. Properly. We're going to put these two through 10 rounds. Weight, strength, weapons, the first blow, speed, armor, stamina, brains, killer instinct, and the round nobody else even bothers with. How each of them was built in the first place, and why that decides everything. Real numbers, real recorded behavior, and where the science genuinely doesn't know, and there's more of that than you'd think. I'll tell you straight, because guessing is how the internet got this so wrong. Stick around because the single factor that actually decides this fight isn't strength, and it isn't size. It's a habit. One of these animals does it almost every day. The other spends its whole life avoiding it. Keep that in your back pocket. First, the tail of the tape. On paper, this is lopsided. A big wild silverback runs about 135 to 180 kilos and stands a shade under 6 feet. But here's the thing the height misses. He's built wide, arms that can span up to around 8 feet, tip to tip, wider than he is tall, a chest like a beer barrel, and hands that can palm your entire skull. A large grizzly, 250 kilos inland, and a coastal brown bear can top 400. Reared up on its back legs, it looms 8, even 9 feet tall. That's not a weight class difference. That's 2 to 3 times the mass. The gorilla is built like a heavyweight boxer. The grizzly is built like the van the boxer arrived in. But, and this is where the comments get loud, bigger doesn't automatically mean better. A heavier fighter who can't land a clean shot loses to a faster one all the time. So size puts the bear ahead on the card. The gorilla's whole hope, therefore, is to be faster, sharper, tougher, or smarter. Over the next 9 rounds, we find out if it's any of those. Let's start with the one everybody brings up first, strength. Gorilla strength is the stuff of legend, and here's the honest truth. Most videos won't tell you. Nobody has ever properly measured it. You can't exactly hand a silverback a barbell. So those viral lifts 10 times its body weight numbers you've seen, made up, pulled from nowhere. What credible primatologists will actually say is that a silverback is estimated to be somewhere around 4 to 10 times stronger than a fit adult man. And notice that phrase, estimated. These are extrapolations, not gym-measured numbers. It's terrifying, and it's a guess. The grizzly is the same story, except scarier. In the wild, bears casually flip boulders that 3 grown men couldn't budge, just looking for grubs underneath. They drag elk and moose carcasses heavier than a piano uphill to bury them for later. And we have still never seen a grizzly push to its true limit and live to write the number down. So, on strength, you've got a gorilla with an impressive unproven ceiling versus a bear whose ceiling we've never found, wrapped in 2 to 3 times the body. Advantage, bear, but raw strength is useless without something to deliver it. So, weapons. The gorilla's weapon is its bite. 2-inch canines behind a bite force, estimated around 1,300 psi, stronger than a lion's. Sounds fight-ending, except here's the catch that changes everything. Those teeth didn't evolve to kill. A gorilla is a herbivore. Those fangs are for shredding tough plant stems and mostly for flashing at rival males to win arguments without bloodshed. It's a weapon built for threats. The grizzly's bite is estimated a little lower, around 1100. So, surprisingly, the jaws are roughly the same league. But the bear isn't just a bite. It's swinging 4-inch claws, like 10 curved daggers that never retract, on the end of 300 to 400 kilos of muscle. That's not fingernails. That's closer to 4 knives bolted to a sledgehammer. The gorilla brings 2 weapons to this fight, both designed for display. The grizzly brings 5, all designed for food. And that difference, weapons for showing off versus weapons for killing, is about to matter a lot. Because now we get to the round that wins most real animal fights, and almost nobody talks about it. The first blow. Here's a truth from every serious animal encounter ever recorded. Most fights are decided in the first 2 seconds. Not by who's strongest over 10 minutes, by who lands the first committed, full-power blow. And this is pure physics, so the doodle gets a little science-y for a second. Force is mass times acceleration. A grizzly charges at over 50 kilometers an hour, carrying up to 400 kilos. That's a motorbike with claws. A single swipe from a bear that size is brutal enough to break bones and stun a large animal. Now, you'll hear people say one swipe can take a moose's head clean off. That part's folklore, not documented. Bears actually kill big prey by biting and overpowering them, not by guillotine. But make no mistake, that opening blow lands like a motorbike with claws. The gorilla, meanwhile, opens fights the way it always has, with intimidation. Chest beating, a bluff charge, a roar. That routine works brilliantly on other gorillas who agree to play by the same rules. The bear did not get the memo. So, the single most likely way this entire fight begins is the gorilla winding up its display, while 300 kilos of bear is already airborne. In the arena of the first blow, theatrics lose to momentum. Hold that picture. We'll play the whole thing out later. But could the gorilla survive that opening exchange and turn it around? That depends on the next 3 rounds. Speed. This is where, obviously, the gorilla, it's faster and more agile, walks straight into a wall of data. A grizzly hits 35 to 40 miles an hour in a charge, on a body the size of a small car. For scale, Usain Bolt, the fastest human who has ever lived, topped out at 27.8. A grizzly would run him down like he was jogging. The gorilla is genuinely quick in short bursts, and it's a far better climber and ground grappler, knuckle walking, rolling, dodging. In a wrestling match at arm's length, the gorilla's agility actually matters. The problem is getting to arm's length on its own terms. It is not outrunning the bear, and it is not sidestepping that first charge. So agility only helps the gorilla if it survives long enough to use it. Which brings us to the question the whole fight hangs on. Can either of them take a hit? Armour. This is the grizzly's signature stat, and it borders on the absurd. In Alaska, 2 hunters once had to put 16 rounds from 10mm pistols into a charging grizzly before it finally dropped. At 5 yards. 5. A thick fat layer, dense slabs of muscle, and a skull built like a crash helmet make the brown bear one of the single hardest land animals on Earth to stop. And an honest nuance, because that's the kind of channel this is. A well-placed shot absolutely kills a bear. They are not bulletproof, and they do not magically get angrier. They just might not go down in time to save you. There's a difference between killing something and stopping it, and in a fight, only stopping it counts. Is the gorilla tough? Yes. In 2004, a gorilla escaped its enclosure at the Dallas Zoo and was loose and attacking people for around 40 minutes. And every victim survived, which tells you a gorilla often isn't even trying to kill. But tough for a primate and can survive a 400-kilo apex omnivore committing to your spine are not the same sentence. So even in the gorilla's best case, the bear is built to keep coming after blows that would end the gorilla outright. And if you can't end a fight fast, you'd better be able to last one. Round 7, stamina. Here's a round the internet completely forgets. The gorilla's muscle is built for explosive power. short, devastating bursts, not forgoing the distance. Mountain gorillas spend over half their day resting, and about a quarter of it just feeding, because a belly full of leaves is low-octane fuel. Push a silverback into a sustained, all-out brawl, and it tires fast. The grizzly, on the other hand, is an endurance engine. This is an animal that swims rivers, runs down elk, digs for hours, and survives months without eating during hibernation by rewriting its own metabolism. It does not gas out in 90 seconds. So big if, the gorilla survives the opening and drags this into a grinding, drawn-out fight, time is the bear's friend, not its. So the gorilla can't win fast, and it can't win slow. Its last hope is to win smart. Round 8, brains. And the gorilla genuinely is brilliant. Great apes use tools, plan ahead, and recognize themselves in mirrors. The gorilla Coco was credited with over 1,000 hand signs, the chimp Washoe with about 250, though plenty of scientists argue those language claims were overstated and never properly peer-reviewed. On raw problem-solving, the gorilla almost certainly takes this round. But here's the brutal part. Bears are no dim brutes either. They have unusually large brains for a carnivore. They actually topped a study of problem-solving across 39 different carnivore species. And they have a spatial memory that maps food across hundreds of square miles. More importantly, in a fight, intelligence is the most overrated stat there is. Chess genius doesn't help you when a heavyweight has already hit you. So the gorilla wins the brains round, and it changes almost nothing, because the bear is smart enough, and this was never going to be solved with cleverness. Which brings us to the round that actually decides it, the one I promised you at the start. Here it is. Grizzlies fight constantly, over food, mates, territory, cubs, against wolves, against other bears, often at close to full force. They hunt, they kill, they defend their kills from rivals. For a grizzly, violence is the daily commute. The gorilla, for all that power, it's basically a gentle giant. That famous chest beating isn't even a bluff exactly. Researchers found it's an honest signal of body size, a clever way to settle disputes without anyone actually fighting. A silverback can live its entire life without a single fight to the death. And here's the kicker that reframes the whole matchup. When gorillas do kill, it's almost always their own kind. Infanticide, when a new male takes over a group, which accounts for about a fifth of infant deaths in the populations we've studied. This is a herbivore that intimidates rivals. It is not a predator that kills them. You're putting a lifelong pacifist in the ring with something that kills for a living. So why are they built so differently? That's not a side note. That's the answer. Round 10. This is the round that makes the whole thing click. Pure Darwin. The gorilla got huge for a peaceful reason. It eats leaves, tough, low-calorie leaves, so it needs a giant gut and a giant body to process enough of them, and it lives in stable family groups where the biggest male wins mates by looking unbeatable, not by being a killer. Evolution made the gorilla strong, and then made it not need to use that strength. Strength as a deterrent. The bear went the opposite way. It's an omnivore generalist. It'll eat berries, salmon, carrion, elk, your bins, anything. And that lifestyle is one long competition. It got big to dominate food and survive brutal winters, and every one of those 4-inch claws, all that endurance, all that durability, was forged by actually fighting and killing to eat. Evolution made the bear a weapon, and then made it use that weapon every single day. So this was never really gorilla versus bear. It was a deterrent versus a predator. And that's a fight the predator was literally built to win, which is exactly why the internet keeps backing the wrong animal. The case for the gorilla is always the same 3 words: speed, agility, intelligence. And the gorilla genuinely wins 2 of those rounds. But agility doesn't save you if you can't dodge the first charge. Intelligence doesn't help once the teeth are in. And an animal optimized for avoiding fights is meeting one optimized for winning them. The gorilla is the stronger pound-for-pound athlete and the smarter animal. The grizzly is the bigger, faster, better armored, longer-lasting, more experienced killer. Those are not the same competition, and only one of them is graded on a fight. So let's stop theorizing. Let's ring the bell. Picture it. The silverback rises, beats its chest. Boom, boom, boom. The sound that has ended 1,000 gorilla arguments before they began. The bear reads it as exactly nothing. It's already moving. 300 kilos closes the gap before the last chest beat lands, and the opening blow is a paw strike with a motorbike behind it. The gorilla is rocked, but it's not done. This is where the gorilla's one real chance lives. It grabs, it bites, it sinks those canines into the bear's neck and shoulder, doing real, bloody damage, the kind that would kill almost anything its own size. And the bear keeps working, because it's been bitten before by other bears, and it did not stop then either. Claws rake, weight pins. The gorilla's explosive power burns hot and burns out, and the fight grinds exactly where the bear wants it. In most versions of this, it ends one way. So, honestly, in the large majority of realistic encounters, the grizzly wins, closing fast, landing first, absorbing the gorilla's genuinely dangerous counter and grinding it out. Could the gorilla pull the upset? Yes, occasionally, if it lands one perfect fight-ending bite to the throat in the first 2 seconds before the bear's mass takes over. The herbivore goes home a legend. Nature isn't a calculator and upsets happen, but run this 100 times and the bear walks away from most of them. Call it roughly 8 or 9 out of 10. The gorilla earns enormous respect and the occasional miracle. The bear earns the belt. And here's the twist that should tell you how lopsided it really is. The genuinely fair fight for a grizzly isn't a gorilla at all. We'll get to who it is in a moment. First, the bit that actually matters for you. Because let's be honest, you clicked partly wondering about you. Against either of them, unarmed, you lose fast. But the genuinely useful part is that the survival manual for each is the exact opposite, and mixing them up gets people killed. With a grizzly, running is hopeless. You cannot outrun 35 miles an hour, and running can trigger the chase. Against a defensive bear, you stand your ground, talk low, back away slowly, and if it actually makes contact, you protect your neck and play dead. And here's a fact worth its weight in gold. In the research by bear biologists, bear spray stops aggressive bears about 92% of the time, as good as or better than a firearm, which demands split-second accuracy against a charging animal. With a gorilla, you do the opposite of everything. Make yourself small, crouch, look away, act submissive, and never hold eye contact or charge back, because almost every gorilla attack is a warning you triggered, and if you back down, they almost always do too. Same planet. Opposite rule books. One you survive by standing firm, one you survive by surrendering. So if a gorilla isn't a fair fight for our grizzly, who is? Quick lightning round, and these are all full episodes waiting to happen. A lion versus that gorilla? Most people who study this lean toward it being closer than the bear. A lion is a true predator, and a silverback's strength is a real problem for it, though, honestly, that one's informed opinion, not settled fact. A leopard versus a gorilla. That one already happens in the wild. The leopard is just about the only natural predator gorillas have, and it does it the cowardly smart way, from ambush at night, picking off a younger or isolated animal rather than taking on a silverback head-on. And the bear's actual fair fight, the one that keeps big cat fans and bear fans at war forever, is the Armour tiger, the one big cat that genuinely hunts brown bears. Though even then it usually takes younger or hibernating ones, and a full-grown male brown bear can absolutely turn the tables. That's a war for another day. If you're new here, welcome to Tooth and Claw Arena, where we settle exactly these fights with actual science every single week. Subscribe, and you'll never lose one of these arguments at a barbecue again. Next up, The matchup that's genuinely fair for a grizzly, bear versus tiger, and it is so much closer than this one. And tell me down in the comments, which animal should fight next? Drop a name. The most requested one gets the next video. Until then, stay out of the arena.